we try and do that for the online. Yeah.
So how are you marketing it? I know that, you know, Brian, you just came back from LA and you
Yeah.
were down there in that nice warm.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, it was actually down there. We work primarily with payment processors. So companies that are in the payment processing industry usually have relationships with large merchant bases that are using large amounts of credit card usage. So Use My Bank is a company that's not looking to reinvent any wheels. So by working with the large users and processors of credit cards, we're able to tap into that huge merchant base. So really our company is expanding not only here in Canada but around the world, and so we're looking for relationships with payment processors, more online banks, and just keep joining them together. And as a result of that, we operate in what we call the halo effect, where the consumer trusts the merchant. They know that merchant, so they feel comfortable making a transaction with that merchant. And if they don't feel comfortable with that merchant, then they're probably not going to be using credit cards with them either.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Because you are going international, is it different in Canada versus the States versus over in Europe? Is there different reactions in the people you're working with?
Well, the technology worldwide for online banking that Joseph has developed the technology to leverage is very similar throughout the world. It's very advanced. So for our company, we're able to leverage most major online banks the same way that we are here in Canada. So that's basically...
Yeah, so from an international perspective, we're able to take the same technology that we use for the Canadian banks, and we can apply that technology to the US banks, to the European banks, to the Asian banks, and on and on. So we've passed our first phase. We're now looking at that expansion and going beyond and finding our partnerships, and we've identified some partners, and we also have existing partners that we're working with to continue that bank expansion. Our whole idea is to add each country one at a time, make sure we get it all settled, and then go to the next country.
Yeah.
So right now we've got the merchant base that is international, it's large, and so as we add more banks on, we instantly add more customers. So if you look at a bank like Bank of America, for example, they have over 14 million online accounts. They have more accounts at one bank than all the major Canadian banks put together. But what I'm getting at is just by adding a bank, we're literally going from 13 million accounts to 27 million accounts at Wells Fargo, European banks, and you can quickly see how fast Use My Bank can grow.
So it's just the two of you on the team? Are you expanding with that team of people you're working with?
Oh yeah, there's quite a few people that work for us
It's a privately
now.
held company.
Okay, yes, tell us just a little bit about that.
Well, I'm pretty much the shareholder of the company. It's a privately held company. Brian's a partner in the company that brings in he's like the town crier. He talks about the company, brings it in. I'm the technology guy, so I bring in all the technologies and pieces and components, work with the partners, work with the companies that we're dealing with from a merchant perspective, getting them integrated, working with what we have is a reseller program as well. That's part of our marketing effort. We have resellers that have the relationships with all the credit card processors. So they go in and they do the relationship management and talking, because we understood early on that there was a chicken and egg scenario.
I always like that, but we're going to come back and talk about the chicken and egg. That got my attention because I never knew which came first. So stay tuned. We'll be right back to find out more about this new online banking. Stay tuned. That's chicken and egg. Welcome back. We're here today with Brian Crozier, I got to think about that, and Joseph Iuso with Use My Bank, an instant online debit payment company. Now, just before we went to break, Joseph, you mentioned about the chicken and the egg, and that always gets my attention. So bring that into the analogy that you were using.
Well, most businesses have a problem with bringing in the clients versus bringing in the consumers versus bringing in the products. So they call that the chicken and egg. Which one comes first?
Which one?
Well, that's the challenge. So what we figured out with Use My Bank is the consumers already have a relationship with their banks. The merchants are already out there. If we can link the two together, which they're already there, then it solves both problems, because the consumers are already out of the Canadian base. We've got 13 million that can make payments through us, right? And the sellers are out there. There's millions of them. So we just find them and plug them in as one at a time. So it's really we've got the chicken, right? Or we've got the egg, which is the consumers. Now it's just going after the chicken rather than trying to find both. And that's what most businesses have problems with, is both sides of it. And so we've solved one problem, and now it's just going after the other one.
I love that. I love that. It's great. Tell me, Brian, a little bit about like fraud and people worried about, you know, the fraud with this and security to do with Use My Bank.
Sure. Well, online banking these days has actually gotten more secure. Lately, with double authentication, taking more steps, the Canadian banks are making online banking that much safer. And Use My Bank takes all the necessary steps to make things safe. But really, Joseph is actually an expert in fraud and has developed systems at Use My Bank to combat that.
Yeah, so what we've taken really is our systems are the banks make payments, or people can make payments through the banks, but it's not 100% sure that it's those people that are making the payments, because they could have been phished. And what phish is
and
where
that's P-H-I-S-H.
Yes,
It was a new word for me.
Yeah, yeah. It's where the phishing. So I don't know why they called it phishing. It's bizarre to me too.
I really like it. It's a fish thing.
Yeah. So what happens is somebody is able to either take your user ID and password through a virus on your computer or through a bot or some other mechanism. You've released your user ID and password, and then come through our service and trying to make a payment. So we've got an existing system in place that has 6 basic rules, and it takes care of looking at IP addresses, amounts, and locations. So if somebody's making a payment in Halifax and the account's in Vancouver, we go, oh, red flag. And so we identify it and then we follow up with it. And right now that's a semi-automated system. We actually have somebody that in the background takes a look at everything and deals with it all. In the new version, which is coming up in probably about a month or so, we've called the advanced fraud system. We've got 26 rules, and it cross-references all 26 to give it a score. And then that score tells us whether it's fraudulent or not fraudulent potential. And
Sounds
then we
very
just,
intensive.
yeah, well, right now there's so many people signing up, using our service every day and making payments that it's getting overwhelming. So we've got to do more automation and put systems in place that literally automate everything.
But you know what we're proud of? The lowest fraud rates of any payment company anywhere in the world. So if you're an online merchant and you're accepting payments and you have fraud's one of the most costly things that can actually destroy your business. Just a few percentage points of fraud can take out the margin. So when you've got a method for absolutely taking guaranteed funds from Use My Bank, it's a lot better than the check is in the mail or any other type of payment
So it
method.
protects the system, because we have to take the proactive measure to make sure that everybody feels comfortable with it. If we didn't do that, then people could abuse it and use it to their heart's content, and that's not what we wanted.
I was going to ask you that. When you're growing so fast in the company, and again, for entrepreneurs, that's sometimes, you know, they're growing so fast and they can't keep up with it. They don't know what to do.
Well, fortunately, we had a plan right from the start, and we knew the type of volume that's out there today, and we know how fast it's growing. And Joseph, with his background being an expert in computers, was able to develop a system that's scalable and can handle the type of volume that we're doing today and into the future. So we're ready for it. And the other good news is that because we're a very automated type of a company, we're not very intensive on people. Our company doesn't need lots of people per se to do the work.